have 9:35 here now, so I think that hopefully gave adequate time for the folks that are joining us virtually. So we'll look to go ahead and call to order the March 28th MPO meeting. As we put the note on our agenda, the meeting will be recorded. So your participation is your consent to being recorded. We want to get that disclaimer out there for everyone. And thank you all for being in the room. Usually we'll only do introductions if it's somebody it's their first time participating in an MPO meeting, whether it be online or here in the room here today. So looking in the room, I know Sal and Austin, you sometimes join us virtually, but the first time coming down and you're on the agenda here presenting from Lycoming County's perspective on the $5 fee. So thanks for joining us. But do I just maybe quickly introduce yourself for everybody?
Sal Vidko, Lycoming County Planning, Watts MPO. So I'm one of the transportation planners for our MPO.
I'm Austin Daly. I'm also with Lycoming County and Watts MPO, transportation planner, and been with the county 9 years now, but 5 with the MPO.
Also project manager for our bridge bundling program. So
Great, thanks for doing that. Anybody else? Preston, thank you.
I'm Preston Watchsteller, District 3 MDOT. I'm a transportation planning specialist trainee.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Anybody online that you'd like to introduce yourself here today?
Yes, good morning. My name is Jeff Eisman. I'm with the PA Statewide Independent Living Council, PA Silk, and we also support a group called the PA Transportation Alliance that has a disability focus. So, yeah, just wanted to let you know I'm here and I can share updates during public comment or member forum. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Others online? See, Dan Reese, I think you've joined us before, but thanks for being on from our peer at the Lackawanna Luzerne MPO. And then Betsy Lockwood is in the room. I know sometimes you're here. You deal with certainly our county planners on a regular basis, but Betsy Lockwood is the director of our, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Betsy Lockwood. I'm Director of Project Development Grants for SEDA COG's Economic Development Program, and I'll be discussing the Appalachian Regional Commission Local Access Road Program when my agenda item comes up. And so, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Betsy. You didn't have to commute far from the other side of the wing. So thanks for being with us here in the office today and in the boardroom for the meeting. Appreciate that. I'll call to order kind of early introductory announcements. One I'll make before we open it for any other public forum for items on the agenda. We have exciting news that earlier this week we had hired a GIS program analyst. They accepted our offer. The target date right now is May 5th on the start. They'll be relocating from New York State. So there's a lot involved with that, with getting up and finding housing and other logistics and everything. So if they better that, that'd be great. Maybe they'll start in April, but right now, May 5th. So we're excited. They're going to bring a lot of really good skills with GIS and mapping and also some kind of artistic and graphics experience as well, and community meetings and facilitation. So we're already sharing information with them to kind of get them up to speed with our processes and programs a little bit so they can review in advance. But we'll look for that individual to be at our next meeting on May 9th. So we'll get formal kind of announcements out there to everybody in the near future and share contact information and everything. But that's some good, exciting news from our front. Is there anything that anyone else would like to share for items not on the agenda here today under public forum?
Yeah, this is Jeff from PA Silk. Again, just briefly wanted to mention that the appropriations hearings were held for the state budget in was it late February, early March, and the governor included an additional $330 million for public transportation. And there's some questions about the sustainability of the funding, though, which would help River Valley, Rabbit, and other transit agencies. It wouldn't just be for mass transit, but also some of the shared ride programs, person with disability, and also senior. So we'll see what happens with that. PennDOT Secretary Mike Carroll was asked about the potential impact of the federal cuts. And one thing he noted for folks that do travel in the capital region, the issue of IE3 came up. You might recall a year or two ago, they were talking about tolling it. He said if the feds don't provide the $500 million, which the Biden administration had agreed to do in 2024, PennDOT would have to come up with it. Tolling would not be an option, but it would impact some other programs. They also mentioned about the dollar. There were questions about the governor flexing the $153 million, which went to SEPTA. I think one of the projects that was where the dollars were flexed coming from was a Columbia County project, and the PennDOT secretary said that they still plan to do those projects this year, so they shouldn't be impacted. The other thing that would be impacted is for next year, and PennDOT's been doing the work to upgrade some of the stations and stops, is an additional train for the Pennsylvanian going from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, which also comes through the Lewistown Amtrak station. If the federal dollars still aren't there, PennDOT would have to delay on that. So, but we'll see what happens. There were also questions about the other general impact for every budget hearing I was here in, DCED, PennDOT, DHS, any of them, about federal dollars. And so there's a lot of that. And I also heard that I guess a lot of the organizations that have community development block grant dollars, which are used in transportation for community planning, are holding on to those. So there's a lot of concerns about that. And we're still trying to get some more details on the recent continuing resolution. I understand there were some cuts there, but not clear on how that's going to impact any transportation or any of the other housing stuff or anything else locally. Still learning more about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else for items on the agenda here today?
Oh, and I also forgot we're May 7th is the deadline for real ID. That was also talked about. For anybody that hasn't done those, I have to confess I haven't done mine. They are starting to get lines at the PennDOT offices, and you have to go to a designated real ID office. It just can't be your local PennDOT office. And PennDOT did say that they're going to be putting pop-up centers. And I also think one of the locations, Lewistown, was actually, I guess they got flooded recently, so they were closed for a little bit. I think they're back up and running, although I'm not 100% on that. Thanks.
Next, following our PowerPoint guide here, we're through the public forum and our trip back to ancient Rome. And now for item C, it's the approval of our past meeting minutes from January 24th. Assuming everyone's had a chance to review those in your packet, either looking at your hard copy or online. And so those begin on page 3. We'd look for a motion to approve the minutes from January 24th.
Move to approve, Steve.
Brad, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Greg, thank you for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I'll consider those a slight delay for the approval, so unless you hear anything to the contrary. Thank you for that. Rolling right along, we're into our customary item D. That's to review our TIP administrative modifications and amendments. These are in your packet that we had shared on Monday. The District 2 actions run from pages 9 to 15 of the packet. And so we'll turn it over here to Mark Schultz, if you would like to highlight any of the changes occurring in District 2, please.
Hey, thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. First page there on page 9, looking in the center of the page, there were some adjustments and move of funds between federal fiscal years there to help support a Juniata Valley Railroad corridor project that'll be federal funded improvements to the Kish Pike, Walnut Street, and Delaware Avenue Railroad warning devices. And I believe there's some surface work planned on a couple of those locations as well. On page 10, at the very bottom of page 10, there's a right-of-way phase that was added for the Kish Creek, the Kishkoillis Creek. This is a roadmap funded project. It's a local bridge interest, and that project continues to move forward with the efforts of both Brown Township and Mifflin County. And thank Mifflin County for their efforts to coordinate that with the township there as well. On page 11, we have resurfacing work on, at the very top of the line there. It says US 22 concrete restoration, but it is really a bituminous resurfacing project. There's concrete on the sub base of that roadway. There's some work that's being done this spring, and that work should be completed in the early part of the year. Moving to page 12. Again, back to in the center there, back to Kish Creek, there was an adjustment by the use of the state line item and the state reserve funds for roadmap funds. They recognized the let date and adjusted those funds for a federal fiscal year into 2026 on that one. And then top of page 13, we have sharing of funds between construction phase and final design for Stony Run Bridge. It was just an adjustment. We needed funds to be able to support the reimbursement agreement for the consultant on the final design phase, and construction phase will be forthcoming in the very near future. At the very bottom of page 13, we have deobligated funds, and you see that a couple times within these administrative actions. Federal funds that have been made available, federal funds that were in, I guess, previously obligated projects. Those projects have been completed. Those funds are now being returned back to the SEDA COG TIP and will be used for other project needs as we become aware of those needs. And then moving to the last page, for bridge over Long Run on 477 in Clinton County, there was an increase in the construction phase final estimate. This is part of our bid preparation. This project, I believe, is planned for a April 17th bid date. So that's all I have. Any questions on anything within the administrative actions?
Quick one for me, Mark, in case there are any from Clinton or Indiana. The reimbursable activity reports and these bridge strikes seem to be happening, much more commonly. Could you just describe that generally for the members, how that plays out, and how you work to get those covered by insurance and everything, just for benefit of people, since they seem to be popping up on a more regular basis now?
Yes, appreciate that. That's a good question, Steve. What we have is when a hauler or some other type of incident occurs at a bridge. In the past, we've had Mahantango covered. It was the wooden covered bridge was struck by a garbage truck that thought that it could pass through that structure, the wooden structure. In those situations, as long as there's a police report and the individual responsible has been identified, we will then gather all efforts into a single claim. That includes our maintenance forces for traffic control. That includes immediate emergency repairs. And then many times these projects go into a design for the repair. And we would have a design cost. We have 2 years from the initiation of the incident to the final construction to then compile all of that work and all that effort to then go after an insurance claim. So many times these bridgeheads are maintained by our county maintenance force, our PennDOT state funds for the county maintenance forces. And when necessary, when the projects are significant, we have to rely on the planning region and these resources in the planning region to help support those projects. So the ones that we see on here for bridgeheads, those funds were more significant than the PennDOT county maintenance funds could absorb, and we were able to then utilize the TIP funds for those needs to maintain that structure. The claim will then be sought after with the insurance company and resolved. And as that becomes resolved, then those TIP funds can come back to the planning region's TIP.
Appreciate that. Thanks for running that down. I know there's a lot of complexity and different elements there, so thanks for that context, Mark. Any other questions on the modifications within District 2? Again, these don't require a vote. These are the lesser administrative modifications. We have this slide that we've been putting in the meeting PowerPoint where we try to highlight, those that are more substantial, say $400,000, $500,000 adjustments or cost increases or things that are just known to be regionally significant. So this is our way to just kind of put those out there in a table. You can access the one map status reports, mapping, and then also putting some Google Street View. We've been doing this for the past couple meetings, and so I'll highlight some of these ones with their action ID on your management report, the MPMS project number, and then these links. So hopefully you're finding that kind of helpful. We know we have the tip modifications dashboard. You can kind of access some of this information through as well spatially, but just wanted to put that plug out and that reminder. If you're not clicking on those when the packet links come off, that is there for the higher order adjustments that we're seeing. So thanks, Mark, for that. We do have 2 amendments today in District 3. Those are on pages 16 and 17. And so, Chris, would you mind running down those for the members?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Good timing having Betsy here. The first one is an amendment to add the Sealands Grove Industrial Park Road ARC project to the local access road project to the tip. We're shooting for a September letting on this. It's been around a long time. As you know, these local APL, ARC projects can be pretty difficult to manage. This one in particular involved right-of-way acquisition, which makes them even harder. Nevertheless, it's gotten to the point where I feel pretty good about forecasting a September let date. So that's the first project.
Thanks for that. Betsy, anything additional you wanted to share from the local?
No. This project was originally awarded funds right before COVID hit. And then after COVID hit, I think the road was maybe designed not appropriately by the engineer, and additionally, the extra cost added on from the increase in materials and construction raised the price of the road. So they came back to us and requested an additional amount of funding. I believe the total is maybe about 1.3.
Yep.
So thankfully, they are getting ready to get started on that road, and it will surely improve that area. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the kind of new members, typically what's involved here is, they'll apply, work with Betsy to DCD, they get reviewed. We agree to add those to TIP when everything comes together and that appropriate time frame, and PennDOT to administer the funding. So there can be some lag time between when we actually review, the proposals and the applications, and give that support letter that, it'll be added to the TIP once all the other agreements and approvals come into place. So that's why you see a little bit of latency between the initial, so now the funds are being added to the TIP and obligated and moving toward construction. So
This is an example, a perfect example of an engineer that's not used to working with PennDOT. Their original engineer must have said he's worked with PennDOT before, but probably did not, and was not very good at designing the road according to PennDOT guidelines. Then the second engineer came in and did a much better job. So this is a great example of making sure that your engineer is familiar with PennDOT guidelines.
Yep, very important. Thank you. Any other questions for Chris or Betsy before we entertain a motion to approve the amendment as presented on page 16? If not, do we have a motion to approve the amendment today? So moved. Sean, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Bob, thank you for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. As Pat, we'll do the E-step process after today and get that chunked through. So additional amendment on page 17, Chris, please.
Yeah, the second project on here is just really a switch of projects on Interstate 80 westbound, west of the Route 15 interchange. They're just basic resurfacing projects. One being moved out, one being moved ahead. It's technically an amendment since the one being moved ahead was on the TYP, not the TIP. So not really a new project, just a change in priorities. But technically an amendment based on how the The MOU is written. So, just basic resurfacings. Not much else to add to it.
Yeah, lots of projects on I-80 going on these days in Montour, Union, Northumberland County, so thanks for getting those names. Any questions for Chris before a motion to approve this amendment for the I-80 project on page 17? Okay, if not, we'd look for a motion, please.
So moved.
Greg, thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Sean, thank you for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. The minor administrative modifications begin on page 18 of the packet. Any in particular you want to highlight here, Chris?
Just that we, you can see there, we're adding the Shamokin earmark to the tip. That project is pushing pretty hard to meet the deadline to get the project obligated. You can imagine this is on, we want to get these funds obligated for reasons we don't have to talk about. Just moving down through, we have, see what's worth pointing out. Pretty big, local project where we are, adding, basically gonna do some local road swaps in Sunbury. Project Northumberland 07L is, I guess, the lower section of Second Street. We will be exchanging some maintenance responsibilities with the city of Sunbury, and PennDOT will be. There's a bunch of Second Street that's currently a local route down around the bridge interchange area that PennDOT will be taking over. We are going to reconstruct that as part of overseeing that maintenance responsibility change. We have some safety funds that'll be added to a project called 11187. This is near County Line Road. We'll be applying high friction surface treatment to that project just after you come off the river bridge at Northumberland towards Sealands Grove. I guess I would point out also there's a rather large increase to the SR 522 section 075. This pair of bridge replacements, west end of Snyder County. That project's since been let. I think the bids may have come in slightly lower. You may see a reduction on a future management action. Well, looking down through, see a new multimodal project that was added. These are, funds aren't from the region. This is Route 45 in Montana. There's a multimodal grant for some private development there. There's a safety project, pretty big increase, and we're since working to increase it again. This is for just about the last section of needed high tension cable medium barrier in the region between SR 180 or basically on Route 147 between CSVT starts. Those are set aside funds, so they're extra funds to the region, not regional safety items. The low bids came in yesterday. We still need an extra almost 250,000 that we are working to acquire those funds from central office. You see a low bid savings from the Danville project. Funds back into the line item where you use the fund increases I've already talked about. I guess that's all really I'd point out unless somebody had a question in particular about something.
Chris, I was really looking at some of these figures for the safety corridor project, we've reallocated almost $3 million from that. Is that because the bids came in that much lower? Than what had been set aside?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
You don't have some of that to. Not going there. But thank you, that's good to know. I know I'd be questioned on that.
Yep. Yep.
Any questions for Chris on any of the adjustments within District 3? If not, thank you very much for running those down. In this section, we typically include a couple other items as well. Page 27, that listing of projects were previously approved. Pending addition to TIP now, the Sealands Grove Industrial Park Access Road, that was proposed today, the TIP amendment was approved, so we can take that one off. And we're still carrying the Milton Borough in case that returns in the future, but that one's been, probably put in the dormancy. And that concludes our section for the TIP items, unless there are any other questions. So if not, we'll go ahead and segue into the CSVT project reporting. We have our typical photo we've been shown here. There's more put on the website. We'll update that in the future, the CSVT project site there, and then incorporate Chris's summary bullet points in the slides, and we'll just turn over a couple items that you want to highlight here, Chris.
So I guess for the future updates, we won't mention the southern section earthwork contract. That is complete. So we won't carry that anymore on future updates. In terms of the structures contract, which is underway, the big item is the Stettler Avenue detour is going to begin, if not this week, next week. I can't remember when I put this together, but I think it may have been starting this week, if not next week. All the other bridge projects on that contract are either heading into like deck and parapet pours, or for some of the other bridge, the work's just beginning this spring. There again, to summarize, there's 9 bridges, 4 noise walls on the contract, and contract's 53% complete. Should be mostly complete by the end of the year. Southern section paving contract is still having the final plans put together. We anticipate letting that contract this fall. And then to summarize it, the whole southern section highway should be open to traffic in 27. The work impacting traffic on existing 11 and 15 in Shamokin Dam will be completed once the mainline section has been opened. And that would include tying 61 connector in, which won't be fully completed and open then until 2028. We do have a few Green Lake Go projects through the existing 11 and 15 corridor that we are going to be incorporating into some paving contracts that we are letting this year. So the goal is to have those signals upgraded by the time traffic is looked over as well. So, any questions on CSVT?
Those are along the entire corridor, not just Shamokin Dam Borough.
Or signal.
Thank you, Chris. Steady progress. As you know, we'll take the earthwork off once that's completed, and just be reporting on the structure contract and then the paving contract here in subsequent meetings. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. We'll move right into item F. This is our typical work program staff activity report. The items begin on page 29 with key information and updates that we typically put out there, provide a lot of links for members to click on and access the information. Several of these things are going to be reflected later on the agenda, so I'll just touch on a couple here briefly. One being the 2027 TIP update. we're in the throes of that now. Early activity with the financial guidance work group, the general procedural guidance work group statewide. The State Transportation Commission has issued its performance report, and we've promoted the open survey for the public. Typical to take the survey instrument itself and then also pop, any project needs or priorities that the public wants to weigh in on. Those are all out there on the State Transportation Commission website. We've promoted those through social media and emails and everything as well, and that's open now through April 30th. So I encourage people to go ahead and hit that. It's good to get that data when it will come available to us probably in June, and do comparisons with our recent long-range plan surveying and past tip rounds, and you'll take a look at the information. I think there's more assessments that are going to be done this time by PennDOT, and engage with folks and provide feedback on what's submitted at a little bit of a higher level, and not just the quantity, but hopefully get higher quality data, and then follow-ups on what the public is providing. There'll be an online meeting of the State Transportation Commission and the PennDOT Secretary in April as well. So if anybody wants to hit that, I think those are usually recorded and made available on the website afterwards. You cannot hit that. And we'll be continuing to work on the tip process throughout this year, and until we get to ultimate adoption probably in June of 2026. And then also, you mentioned on page 32, we have about the multimodal fund. If you hadn't seen those announcements, the DCD, CFA multimodal approvals were announced at the end of February. We have that link right there in the packet on page 32. You can see what was approved across the Commonwealth, and several within our region, and the entire SEDA COG region were approved for funding. So you can consult those lists. You kind of have to scroll all the way to the bottom and see the bold projects if you want to go through those, because they have the entirety since the inception of multimodal fund in that PDF. But go look at the bold ones that were approved in late February. And then the PennDOT multimodal round, most recent round, we've now received access to the applications. We'll be coordinating closely with the district staff on review and comments there, and the members, if there's anything we want to consult with you on it. We weren't already familiar with the projects and want to learn more, but we'll bring those staff level comments to you for the next meeting on May 9th and get those submitted before the deadline of the 23rd of May. So I would anticipate probably be late summer, potentially early fall, so you would see those approved. And the DCD round, going back to that, the new round is open now and available through July 31st. If anyone's working on applications, we hear of those routinely and can offer some input on those. But DCD open now through the end of July. PennDOT usually at September to November timeframe for the next round. And transportation alternative set aside, everything that we've been hearing, others feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is there should be another solicitation, hopefully sometime this spring or late spring 2025, and we'll work with the project sponsors and have our typical process to review applications and offer comments to PennDOT as those are considered on a statewide basis for that funding program. And then on page 33, the PennDOT Connects Municipal Outreach and Peer Exchange, we've promoted those. The county members are sharing with the municipalities. Feel free to do that more directly or to interact with them. There's some things changing this time. Some of the materials that are going to be presented, I think the local bridge inventory tool is going to be highlighted. So that might be something that is of particular interest, and we'll probably work to maybe get a presentation on that for MPO members later this year to learn more about that for the small local bridges to be inventory and provide the PennDOT seamlessly and entered into the data systems there. So there's other funding aspects and certainly land use and transportation technical assistance subjects and questions, but the District 2 one will be May 1st, I believe, and District 3 on May 12th. So you have an opportunity to hit those in person or virtually for District 2, and then entirely virtually for the District 3 session. And then I'll just mention page 34, the AMPO membership. We're seeing, obviously, Chris alluded to all the kind of federal changes on the executive orders or injunctions or restraining orders, policy changes and programs, and AMPO is doing a great job of sharing these updates timely. And so we're we're glad to have that, that membership continuing, and there's other things that they're doing. They're just broadly available to anyone to access, so we can get that information out in summary level info on the changes as they would impact transportation via future meetings. And I'll stop there and just turn, Don, if you're okay, if you want to highlight anything for the LTAP portion of the staff report.
There's just a couple of things. The LTAP spring classes season is in full swing. There's several classes that we'll be involved with during April. Also next week, the spring meeting of the advisory committee for LTAP will take place, and I'm on that. That's a good place to find out what's going on with development of new classes. So if any of you or some of your municipalities maybe have ideas for that, it's good timing. We'll be able to find out what's going on and promote some of those as well. Right afterwards, we also conduct an annual training needs survey that gets sent out through email notice to all the municipalities where we collect similar types of information as well. So that'll be coming out real soon. One thing I did want to highlight is last year or so, there's been a significant number of people that have requested LTAP assistance in working with their municipalities. If they're new road superintendents, for example, and the old one has retired or is no longer available for whatever the reason is. But rather than doing in-person classes, LTAP's developing organizational training classes that'll be drop-in sessions. So they'll be available whenever somebody wants to get there. But there'll be probably a good number of those on different topics to help out, especially road superintendents, ranging from things like supervision, dealing with financial situations, dealing with ordinary people, so to speak, and all kinds of related topics that they maybe just don't have a whole lot of guidance and training for. So we're kind of excited about that. The first of those is available, has been offered and is available going forward, and there'll be more of those. So probably give you a little bit more of a report next time at the next MPO meeting on some of the results from those meetings.
Great, thank you, Don. And then the Penn College training events coming up, and those are always very good, especially for newer staff. If they've not been trained properly on how to safely handle the equipment that they can actually work with on site at Penn College, and chainsaw safety as well.
Yeah, that'll be this summer.
Thank you. The other typical things we have in here are the normal HOP and traffic impact study information, the TA set aside, status reporting. Feel free to ask questions about those. The last things I'll mention are just on the kind of support letters or commentary on behalf of the MPO. So page 42, the Federal Register notice was issued and comments were due the end of February on the National Multimodal Freight Network. And so as we considered that, looked at it, we thought it was appropriate to submit the CSVP Northern section for inclusion on that. Route 15 and I-180 were already on it. And with the altered traffic flows and now the 2023 numbers were 3,800 trucks per day crossing the river bridge, we thought that rose to the magnitude that this should be considered. So you'll see our comments. Don submitted those to the Federal Register docket. And if there's changes to the mapping or the designations, we can share that afterward. I'm not sure what the timeline will be ultimately. But then we noted at the end when the southern section built, and obviously how that's going to change the flows and increase, freight volumes on that new roadway versus existing 11 and 15. We think that would be appropriate for designation in the future as well. So we wanted to call that to your attention. And then there's also some support letters or consistency letters in there you'll see for some grant programs on the continuation of the stop hopper, micro transit, and a walkworks grant application that Coltmont Borough was submitting to the Pennsylvania Downtown Center and the walkworks folks. And then Sean, I think, is familiar with this one, the Buffalo Valley Rail Trail crossing and pursuit of the DCNR Community Conservation Partnerships Program funding there as well. So any questions on any of the staff reporting items or additional materials in the packet?
Steve, question, has Bridgebuck been replaced? Do you have a new GIS person here?
So maybe you came in after I announced that. Yeah, sorry, it was kind of the early part, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably did, yeah.
Sorry.
That's what, we have hired someone, early part of this week. They accepted it and they'll be relocating from New York State. So there's a little bit of, lag time there, but May 5th is the target date right now for them, so we're excited about that.
Thank you.
We'll have them for the May 9th MPO meeting then. Okay, if there's nothing further, we will proceed right into item G, and Betsy, as we had alluded to earlier, update on the Access Road program.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. SEDA COG is designated as a local development district, or LDD, for the Appalachian Regional Commission. And one of our responsibilities as an LDD is to identify and help develop good competitive projects for ARC funding. ARC is a local, state, federal partnership, so we work with DCED, and DCED and ARC work very closely together. If projects can get through the LDD and DCED, they're almost guaranteed to be funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission. ARC is an economic development program, meaning the impacts for projects need to serve businesses, provide job creation and investment. The ARC Local Access Road Program is one of those programs, and what I'm here to talk about today. There's about $5 million available annually through the ARC Local Access Road Program. The guidelines for the program are on page 48 of your meeting packet. Projects can generally range from about $5 million, from about $500,000 to $1 to $1.5 million. And while ARC will fund 100% of a project, ARC and DCED like to see some skin in the game in order to be competitive for funding. PennDOT administers the funding, as Chris had mentioned earlier, and you must meet PennDOT requirements. The applicant must be a municipality and agree to own and maintain the road. The road projects cannot be considered maintenance, and they must improve the road. So, for instance, Seals Grove, they are widening the road, softening some S curves in the road, strengthening the pavement, and improving drainage. So that's what makes this road competitive. You can also do new access roads, so roads that are not currently there, but you'd like to add. The MPO must add the projects to the TIP. And I'm here, I can walk folks through the application process and involve PennDOT at the appropriate time. I'd be willing to answer any questions that anybody has around ARC local access road funding. As Chris can attest to, sometimes these projects take years to come to fruition, but they are good project funds and can help when a project is either not eligible to be funded in any other way, or it may be a difficult project to get funded. ARC is here to help. Lisa had a hand up.
Thank you. Lisa, please go ahead for a question.
Yep. Hey, good morning. I know you're very knowledgeable about this topic, and I know that you've assisted the town on prior applications, but I do have a question. I know some of the PennDOT representatives are here on this call. If we had a project, say at the Bloomsburg Fairgrounds, and it's, essentially a new roadway that's mandated by PennDOT, but we have an existing roadway, does that count, or is that not even in the runnings?
I don't see why it wouldn't. As long as the road is open to the public 100% of the time. I know that that's one of the requirements.
Okay, I will follow up with you after, outside of the
Sure.
call, so I'm not taking everyone's time up, but that certainly helps. Thanks, Betsy.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's other areas where, say, there's been a traffic impact study or an HOV, and like St. Mary Street or others, that's kind of that process that you coordinate through, and they.
Yeah, but one of the first things I would do after Lisa contacts me is contact Aaron Christ at PennDOT District 3, and we'd come and tour the project and just make sure that it would meet all the guidelines.
Yeah, PennDOT really doesn't get too involved in, Betsy usually works through the eligibility issues, and PennDOT more of the constructability, feasibility, and then deal with project development. So,
yeah.
Kind of a collaborative effort on what gets funded.
Any others with Canon projects you'd like to
I
discuss
think
here?
the big thing to keep in mind with ARC funds is they're federal, so it does bring into it makes the project a federally administered project. It's a little more in-depth in terms of plans development, environmental clearances and all that.
A little bit more in-depth than like a multimodal project might be.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lisa.
Like for Greg's case in Montour County, I forget, how's that worked out, kind of the match?
So, yes, thank you for calling out Montour County, because we worked on a project there several years ago. All of the counties in the SEDA COG region are considered transitional, and for local access road funding, they will fund up to 100% of a project. However, Montour County is considered a little bit more well off, likely because of the presence of Geisinger medical systems and the high concentration of probably high-paid physicians in that county. And they are considered what ARC calls competitive, meaning they're only eligible for 30% funding. Doesn't mean we can't fund a project in Montour County. It just means that ARC would fund 30% of a project and then the other 70% would need to come from another source. So still, please don't hesitate to contact me. In that instance, we'd probably be looking at the last one in on a project just to cover the last 30% or less of a project.
Now, does that apply across the board as the entire county
Yes,
and not down to the individual municipality that may be very rural and not
as well off.
wealthy?
Unfortunately, it's the entire Montour.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure, but we could look at multimodal projects and then
Sure.
come in with an ARC funding, ARC local access road funding for maybe the last,
Departmental.
yeah. But it needs to serve businesses. There needs to be an economic development component to it. But
We may have that active safety corridor project that's put in. We'll have that opportunity out near Interstate 80.
Okay.
And we may have to look at extra roads.
Perry County and Montour County seem to go back and forth in terms of how the ARC designates them between competitive, transitional, and the other side of that beyond competitive is attainment, meaning you can't spend any ARC funds in that county. We haven't had that for a couple of years, but Montour and Perry County seem to go back and forth with that, but the rest of the counties have been transitional.
I would commend you, Betsy, just the coordination you do with all the different sponsors and the engineers and PennDOT. It's great and really helps us to be successful. And you, compared to your other peers across the state, really have been harnessing as much of the access road funding as possible. So
We try. For a while there, we were getting about one or two projects every year. It's slipped back a little bit, I think, due to the cost of construction. But we do try and get at least one project in our region funded. Okay,
thanks for that.
all right,
Regular
thank you,
information. You're
everyone.
always welcome to share this and get the
Yeah.
pipeline project.
I'm willing to come as many times as you want. Thank you. And I've come to present at Watts previously, and I've gone to present at Center County also. So we try and hit the entire SEDA COG region. All right, thanks.
Betsy. Thank you, everyone. We are moving into the round of other guest presentations here. This is item H. If you recall, we were trying to be more deliberate in how we identify guest presentations throughout the year for members to benefit from, rather than just other things than us, spouting off up here as staff for the MPO. And Sean had kind of pointed this one out, and we were glad to take him up on that for the $5 fee usage. We have a few counties. We have Center, Lycoming, Mifflin, and Union counties within our region have adopted the ordinance for $5 fee. They're receiving the proceeds. One of those few things that you can do to kind of set your own course with transportation funding as a county and to benefit your municipality. So we're glad to have some sharing here, best practices, and the presentations that Sean and Sal and Austin will share from Lycoming's perspective as well. And so in your packet, we only had the $5 fee program kind of eligibility information on page 55. And we had the separate PowerPoints in the link that we shared off at the packet. And I'll go ahead and not delay any longer with my remarks. I'll gave this, and I'll bring up Sean's PowerPoint then to give for us at Union County. We'll start there and then segue into Lycoming. Bear with me one moment. Okay. Let's go across. Start again. Okay.
I'll look at this one.
There we go. So stop the one and start the next. Got 5 PowerPoints open there.
All right, thanks, Steve. So I'm here to, Steve, to share Union County's experience with the fee for local use, also commonly known as the $5 fee or the $5 vehicle registration fee. Start with the timeline in Union County. Act 89 authorized counties start collecting the fee in 2015. In Union County, our commissioners pride themselves, like many other counties, on not raising taxes. There's not been a tax increase, a property tax increase in Union County for almost 15 years at the county level. So when this fee first came out, there was absolutely no interest. It was viewed as a tax increase by the Board of Commissioners. 2 important things then happened. First, the commissioners had a conversation with then State Representative Fred Keller. They asked him to help facilitate getting more money for the county in its bridge program. And Representative Keller's response was, did you enact a $5 fee? And if your answer is no, this conversation's over. I'm not talking about it. You go adopt the fee. And if you don't have enough money, come see me and we'll go from there. And the second thing that happened in 2017, PennDOT offered a one-time $2 million incentive for any county to implement the fee. Needless to say, October 2017, Union County Commissioners, by unanimous vote, passed an ordinance to implement the $5 registration fee. So with that, then we had to come up, you can go to the next slide, Steve, come up with a game plan for using the funds. How could we maximize this funding and get the best bang for the buck? So we started talking to PennDOT District 3 staff and our county bridge engineer. And what we decided to do was a $4 million county bridge bundle with $2 million from PennDOT and then a PIB loan for the other $2 million. Because our fee was just starting to come in, we didn't have a lot of money. So the solution was $2 million loan to the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Bank that we would repay over the next 10 years of the proceeds from the fee. So you can go to the next slide. As you can see from this slide, the $5 fee is by far the biggest source of revenue Union County receives for transportation on an annual basis. It clearly outweighs liquid fuels, Act 89, Act 44, and the Act 13 structurally deficient bridge funding that we receive. We're getting on average about $202,000 per year over the last 5 years. And that's with a population of just over 42,000, and we have 40,480 registered vehicles in the county that the fee is assessed on. Keep in mind, we do have a lot of old order horse and buggy Mennonites living in the county who do not have registered vehicles. So in some other counties with higher populations and more registered vehicles like Columbia and Northumberland would probably generate significantly more funding. And I think Steve and PennDOT have those figures available as to how many registered vehicles are in each county that the fee would be applicable to. So with this new funding, then we had to figure out which bridges to fund. It's a little hard to see here. We have 26 bridges we own in Union County, and a number of them were structurally deficient or poor condition. And after a lot of back and forth with the engineers, PennDOT and commissioners, we decided on a 5-bridge bundle that would be split into 2 phases. And the reason we split into 2 phases, what Chris alluded to earlier, the $5 fee money is considered local. $2 million that came from PennDOT as an incentive was federal. So we didn't want to mix those two and federalize the entire bridge bundle. We broke it into a 3 and a 2, a package of 3 and 2, 3 bridges with the local money and 2 with the federal money. Next slide, Steve. So one of the first bridges we did was this bridge, County Bridge number 1. It was a single lane steel open grade bridge with poor condition beyond being rehabilitated. It's replaced with a new single lane concrete bridge due to low volume and right of way constraints. The next bridge we did was a historic covered bridge, County Bridge number 13 in Mifflinburg Borough. this is according to the Theodore for Arch Bridge Society, this is the oldest drivable covered bridge in the United States on the National Register. So we were able to completely rehab that bridge. And then the third bridge we did was Union County Bridge 21. It was a steel girder bridge in poor condition. And I talk about hit structures. This bridge had a high rate of the abutments being hit by vehicles, stone masonry abutments, and we never could catch the people doing it. So we're able to realign this a little bit to address that condition and put a new bridge in. And then the second phase, also, we did another covered bridge, Union County Bridge 9, which is on the historic register, completely rehabilitated that structure with the second phase. And then the final bridge we did was County Bridge 25, which was again one of our last remaining open grade steel bridges. It was in poor condition. Also was narrow and couldn't accommodate farm equipment in the vicinity. So that's how we use this fee initially. The other benefit to the $5 fee is that it allows us to use our other bridge funds for routine maintenance and targeted preservation projects, which the county was not really able to do in the past. So over the last 5 years, we've been able to invest over $540,000, things like concrete deck sealing, epoxy overlays on decks of cracking, and complete deck reconstruction on some structures. The other thing, see here in the next slide, is by having this $5 fee, it allowed us to explore new opportunities and gives us the flexibility to work on other transportation needs in the county. And the most recent effort is a municipal bridge bundle that will replace 6 municipally owned bridges in poor condition, 5 that are owned by a township and 1 that's owned by a borough, in 5 different municipalities. PennDOT Secretary Mike Carroll was in Union County to promote the multimodal program and to give his praises for our approach on this effort. One of the municipalities that were helping said it would take them 10 years to assemble enough of their own liquid fuels money to do 1 bridge. And that's if they didn't spend a penny on any other transportation work in their community during that 10 years. So no road paving, no other transportation projects. So that's how beneficial this is to the municipalities. So we were able to secure about a little over $2 million in PennDOT multimodal funds, $475,000 in DCD multimodal. The county contributed $500,000, and the municipalities are covering the remaining match for a total of a $3.5 million bridge bundle. By the county participating and securing these other grants, we were able to drop the municipal cost share from 30%, which is what's required on multimodal if they go in on their own, to about 10.25% local match. So it made it very affordable. County's administering the project. We secured, managed the grants. The county engineer did all design, permitting, bid documents, and will be performing construction inspection. Commissioners advertised and awarded the bid to a single contractor, and all 6 structures will be done this year. One of them's already done, and we're moving on to the other facilities. Obviously, thinking about future projects as money continues to come in. Years, our PIP loan will be completely paid off, but there's no shortage of potential projects. Moving forward, we may take a look at trying to do Union County Bridge number 6, which is in poor condition, or look at rehabilitating another covered bridge we own in the county. In addition to that, we do have the ability to potentially continue our municipal assistance. We know there are at least 3 or 4 municipal-owned bridges in the county that are in really poor condition. Several others headed in that direction that are not eligible for TIP funding because they're under 20 feet. Providing assistance to municipalities for safety. As the long list of eligible projects that are in publication 9. We know our municipalities are struggling with maintaining and improving their transportation infrastructure. We heard that loud and clear the last several years while we were updating our county comprehensive plan. So the slide you've all been waiting for, and I saved this to last to try to hold your attention, is what was the constituent reaction and political reality of adopting this fee? Our commissioners decided they were doing the absolute minimum in terms of what was required to adopt the ordinance and implement the fee. I think they discussed it at one public work session, which no one ever attends. They did the minimal advertising, held the public hearing, and voted to implement it. There was no advanced outreach or education done. Strategically, they didn't want anybody to get, up in arms. After it was implemented, clearly, some people saw the fee on their vehicle registration renewals, and there was a little bit of grumbling, but I would say it was probably less than 20 people in the entire county that called or sent emails to the commissioner's office. And most of that was because of false rumors that were started. Word was going around that $5 fee money was being redirected to the city to support mass transit, which freaked people out. There was another rumor that it was going to public assistance and welfare. But once those rumors got squashed, people realized it was staying in the county to repair infrastructure that they use on a daily basis. They were pretty accepting of it. And to put it in perspective, see some pictures here. The cheapest cigarettes at Walmart, if you want to smoke some Lucky Strikes, it's $7.48 a pack. If you want to get a better brand, shoot for Marlboros, over $11 a pack. And you can see on the sandwich board from Wendy's, you can't even get a value meal for $5 at a fast food restaurant today. So, I know people don't like paying taxes and fees, but if someone can't afford $5 a year in vehicle registration, you shouldn't be driving a car. When you think of how much gas costs, tires, oil, inspection, all that kind of stuff. So, and I've served on this MPO board, I can get the next slide, Steve, for over 20 years. And one thing's remained constant, there's never enough transportation funding, even with all the grant programs that are available today. The case is they're extremely oversubscribed. And I know some counties don't own a lot of bridges or may only have a handful, but I guarantee the municipalities in your county could use these funds if the county were to enact the fee and use those funds to leverage other dollars. I got some information from Steve for this presentation. There are 189 municipal bridges in the SEDA COG MPO region over 20 feet in length, and 49 of those, or 25%, are in poor condition currently. You can do the math based on the going rate for a new bridge. That's a staggering dollar amount that's needed to correct those deficiencies. There are also about 600 municipal bridges less than 20 feet in the SEDA COG MPO region. Steve has informed me there's not really an accurate count of how many of those are in poor condition, but let's assume it's 15%. That puts us at another 87 structures. And then there's 236 traffic signals with 7 more planned and thousands of miles of municipal roads. Union County has 304 miles of municipal roads alone. And how many poor sidewalks have you seen in street right-of-ways around the region? Funding can also be used for those types of projects. So that's all I will say at this point, and certainly available for questions, try to answer if people have them. Also, if somebody wants, us to come to one of their communities and talk to your commissioners or other leaders about the $5 fee and ways to use it, happy to do that. I've recently had several conversations with Carbon County commissioners and their chief clerk on how they found out what we were doing and called to try to see if we could share information, which we did. So.
Thanks, Sean. It's very instructive, and you guys have been working through this methodically and great work, and the bundles are paramount. You taking that burden off the local municipalities for the county administration of it is huge. And so we'd love, if there's any other counties you want to ask questions to Sean at this time or follow up later, feel free to do so. But any questions for Sean on the Union County example?
Yeah, so Sean, so the county has to enable essentially authorized tax,
Yes.
but then PennDOT collects.
PennDOT collects and then remits it to the county time here, June and December, and we receive payment.
They collect into the vehicle that they do through PennDOT.
So there's really no admin on the county itself other than adopting the ordinance and putting the money in the account and spending it.
And I pushed this issue when it first came out because Montour County owns all. Municipalities don't own any. So the dollar falls back on the county. And it's never been one, like they said, oh, we're gonna raise another tax. That was the feedback. I'm not giving up on it. I like the presentation.
Yeah,
We've got new commissioners.
And we put the link in the summary PowerPoint. I think there's 24 of the 7 counties, so it's still not a very high threshold. You know, it's built a little bit over time, but the ones that were most interested pretty much adopted within the first 2 or 3 years. And since then, it's been slow going to get that amount to rise.
And did you say, Chris, you, hypothetically, if we want to look at Vermont tour, you would have a ballpark number of the vehicle registrations, we could ballpark how much the county.
We can get that, yeah.
And give you the exact number. Everything that's registered.
Thank you, that was real helpful.
I have a question. I'm not really familiar with this piece of legislature here. I was wondering, like from a municipality, are you looking for municipalities to support it and provide a resolution to the county? You know, if our county's not doing it, you know, how can I assist, you know, our area, you know, to get that news out?
Your recommendation, I mean, the county commissioners did this and then they kind of rolled it out, but
Yeah, in our case, it went the other way, you know, the county's the leadership role, but I think if municipalities, you know, see a need and looking around your community and feel this is something that can be beneficial, I think, grassroots support, getting to the county commissioners, certainly would help the cause in your community. If they're hearing from residents and townships and boroughs and towns.
yeah. And we certainly always promote it. You know, we know how constrained the TIF is to fund local bridges and other projects. So this is something where you can, like Sean said, it's collected by PennDOT. When people register vehicles, you get the payments twice a year. And there's, you know, certain accounting and management has to be done, but it's a way to really address your transportation needs locally without having to do a ton of the other work. Just enact the ordinance, essentially advertise that and prove it.
You brought up a good point. If you see some of your bridges like we did, and there's a lot of competition for funds in an 8-county MPO, we looked at that bridge list and ranking. Well, there's a bridge on there, number 18. That bridge is in bad shape. It's very important to us, but on a regional competitive level, it doesn't rank very high. We're going to be sitting here a long time in Union County waiting to get that 18th or 20th ranked bridge up on a tip. So this allows us to sort of address our needs more quickly by having these resources.
And there were a fair number of new commissioners in the last 2 years. So if you're kind of looking to do that kind of advocacy, please do with your county commissioners or, you know, networking with your other peer municipalities, you know, certainly would encourage that. Most of our interactions with, you know, the MPO members and with the county commissioners to promote this option and try and get more to take action on it. So anything else you want to do locally, we'd certainly encourage that and support it.
Great. And I know you had mentioned, Steve, in the chat. I was looking, maybe I'm missing it, but is there a link or something I can send to our county or at least, you know, local municipalities here in Bloomsburg that I can share?
Yeah, in the packet, we have the guidelines, the eligibility guidelines. There's other information on PennDOT's site. And then looks like Chris is putting the vehicle registrations and email to us where you can access that through PennDOT driver licensing bureau, I believe. And so we can share that in the ticker as well after today's meeting, but there's a fair amount of information. And then there's like a little sheet that I alluded to where it says, it shows the counties that have enacted the ordinance, so you can have that as a basis as well.
Was the $2 million PennDOT incentive, was that the thing that kind of pushed you, you know what I mean, were you guys on the fence before, or?
But we weren't on the fence at all before that really tipped the scale between the state reps comments and then the 2 million right on the heels of that. Yeah, it really put us over the top. I guess that's a question. I think Steve and I talked about this a little bit. I don't believe PennDOT's got any plans to offer any incentive.
They wouldn't go against it, but region wanted to dedicate like some of this TIP funding, but then you're losing out on others. So there's no federal funds being set aside statewide for it now. So it'd be taking off of our region allocation if we were to determine that was something that all the members and, you know, the MPO board wanted to do, then you're gonna offset some other projects.
Great conversation, guys. I just wanted to mention Mark Schultz with PennDOT that I see on page 56 of the handout as acceptable. It does say that there's these funds can be requested or used as repayment of or security for a PIB loan. Many of our local municipalities struggle with the effort of getting a project developed for submission, whether it's for ARC, whether it's for multimodal, web PennDOT, and DCD, those types of funds, resources that are out there for construction. So great encouragement, and appreciate the information that you've shared with us. Great encouragement that this is a resource to allow somebody at a local municipality to seek those other fund sources for those types of improvements. So thank you very much.
So I will turn your questions for Sean. I'll hit the share here and bring up the Lycoming County PowerPoint as well. Through, okay, momentarily, I'll hit the presentation mode, and Austin and Sal, we'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Like I said before, I'm Austin Daly, and I was Sal and I were the project managers for Lycoming County's bridge bundling program. So I will say that our experience with the program was a little different, because the sort of the adoption phase of the local use fee, Sal and I were not on board, or at least in our current roles there. But I was on staff, so I will say in 2016, 2017, after this legislation was enacted, our county commissioners were approached by our then transportation supervisor, Mark Morawski, and how he thought that if the county was proactive on this, that we would be able to really be on sort of the cutting edge of what we were able to do. So our commissioners throughout the latter portion of 2016 and into the summer of 2017 held numerous meetings with the public. It was almost a standing item on the Tuesday, Thursdays agendas. And they would also go to municipal and borough, municipal meetings when requested to specifically speak about the potential adoption of the $5 fee. They also did presentations at the 2016 and 2017 township officials meetings. And I will say that through the bulk of the time frame, they got their butts handed to them by township supervisors and a shocking number of engaged public citizens who came to these meetings frequently. Throughout the process, though, I will say that there were sort of two, I think, tipping points in the discussions that ultimately led to our commissioners adopting the fee. The first of which is that there was the PennDOT incentive for $2 million, which we knew was not going to be there forever. And if we were going to consider this, adopting this, that was the time to do so, because we knew that $2 million would go a long way, regardless of how large of a bundle, a project we did. The other was that once the commissioners had got it sort of in their mindset that this was a good move, they approached conversations with municipalities a little bit differently. And it was basically, we're willing to help those who are able to help themselves. And we had a lot of requests from municipalities at that point in time for assistance on specifically small local bridges. And then they were also in opposition of the fee that we had available to us, which would help those exact bridges. So in those discussions, the commissioners were able to persuade a good portion of the municipalities across our county that this was a good idea and that they should, come out in support of this. And then ultimately, we adopted this fee in 2017. Which led into sort of the formation of what we come to know as our bridge bundling program, where the county, on behalf of municipalities, would repair or replace poor condition municipally owned bridges. We would act as their agent in this process. We signed MOUs with 17 municipalities to run the program on their behalf. They were always welcome to participate in our construction meetings or our progress meetings. But we had a number of municipalities that were just like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to be involved. We're more than happy for the county to come in and run this program for us. So we solicited all of our municipalities who we found had bridges that would be eligible under the county's set criteria. And we specifically targeted less than 20 bridges that we knew would be available or that would be eligible through our bridge inspection program. Lycoming County is sort of, unique in that we do inspect every bridge in the county over 20 and under 20 feet. The county uses its portion of liquid fuels to inspect the under 20 bridges on behalf of municipalities at no cost to them. They receive reports annually or biannually or every 3 years, just depends on what cycle they're on. And then in those reports, they're provided with, suggestions basically from our engineer. We worked with the municipalities to select what they deemed to be the highest priority bridges. Some municipalities chose just the most expensive bridge, because it would be the largest cost to them. Other municipalities had bridges that were more pressing, but had a higher local impact. One municipality has a very large agricultural operation that is on a public road, and the detour would be extremely long, and the benefit to improving that bridge more immediately was better than just a small, low volume road bridge that may have scored worse, that they thought they would be able to turn around on a quicker timeline themselves. We bundled bridges specifically in this program, not by region or by length, but by the structure type that they would ultimately be replaced in. We thought that would lead to the greatest cost savings for the program. By having contractors come in and know that they're replacing 4 bridges across our county with, say, 4 aluminum box culverts or 5 GRS bridges or whatever the case may be. And in total, we were able to replace 17 bridges on behalf of municipalities over a 3-year period throughout our county. I guess I'll turn it over to Sal now to discuss our funding strategy and the sort of program outcomes.
Thanks, Autumn. It was actually 19 total, so we had our 17 and then 2 bridges that PennDOT actually managed for us with that $2 million because we enacted early. So for the bridge bundling funding, we utilized our $5 fee money and we're using that to pay back the $7 million PIB loan. So it was, again, Austin and I kind of came in midstream. It was actually Scott Williams and Mark that kind of worked on organizing and finalizing the PIB loan agreement itself with PennDOT. And we're using primarily our $5 fee money to pay that back over the next 10 years. We held back some liquid fuels money just in case the registrations would go down or anything like that. We'd be potentially a little shy. So we have a backup there, so to speak. The commissioners went with the PIB loan at that time versus a bond. It was just their board's decision to go that route. I know with bonds, you have usually a longer loan repayment term, but for whatever reason, at that particular moment in time, that board of commissioners decided to go with the PIB loan itself. As Austin mentioned, we signed agreements, MOUs with all municipalities involved, where they would contribute 5% of the total cost for their structure, and then the estimated cost of their structure in the county helped out there as well. We are in repayment now on the PIB loan. I think the first 2 payments have been drawn, 3 payments have been drawn. I will say working with PennDOT and the PA Comptroller's Office has been fairly easy. Any issues that have crept up, there's really good communication there. And we're actually set to get our updated amortization schedule here this spring. As Austin mentioned, we tried to look at cost saving measures. One of those was to go through pre-purchase structures through CoStars. I don't know if you mentioned, one of the things that we specifically tried to do to help with cost savings was that the municipalities were given basically a recommended bridge structure type, and then they picked kind of out of a short menu, like an aluminum box culvert or a concrete arch culvert. So the bridges were actually specifically designed for those streams to basically right size them. And we were able to capture a decent amount of savings via just pre-purchasing things, whether it be concrete arches or the aluminum box culverts itself. You can go to the next slide, Steve. So in general, we were able to reduce municipally owned core bridges by approximately 15% countywide. We reduced their annual repair for those bridges. Obviously, you know, if there's 17 new bridges, the goal there is that they will not need to be repaired very, very soon. You just got to do basic maintenance on those. We actually had very good feedback from the 17 municipalities regarding you know, the whole project in general. I mean, there were some hiccups involved, as anyone would expect with a large project like that. But by and large, I feel if you contact any of our municipalities, they're very happy about the program. Another outcome of this program was that some of the municipalities were actually able to take some of those structure types and complete other bridge projects for themselves on their own. I think it was Limestone Township was able to do another aluminum box culvert on their own. So they learned to actually be self-sufficient again in other areas, which is a great bonus. We had a estimated 1.5 cost savings for the project itself. As Sean mentioned, when we looked at, you know, surveys and getting results from the municipalities, they stated it was about 10 years. If they had to do something on their own, it would have been about 10 years for, I think, the longest one to be able to save up enough money to replace their bridges. I think one of the most expensive bridges was Gap Road in Washington Township, and it was about, what, $850,000? And the municipality paid, you know, 5% of that amount, which again, that's a huge cost savings to the municipality. We can go to the next slide. Just some other general lessons learned. Even with the, you know, the agreements in place and coordinating with municipalities, things like right-of-way acquisition, utilities, things like that, definitely get those conversations out of the way early on and follow up as much as possible to make sure those things are being moved on, and not being left to the last minute. The PID loan versus bond is going to be unique, obviously, to every municipality or county that's looking at those. I think at the time, for our county, we had a number of bonds that were already kind of out there, and the commissioners felt more comfortable since we had a dedicated repayment source with the $5 fee money to go after that PID loan. And then the bridge type and design, one of the things I think that was unique to our program was we didn't just replace in kind. Our engineering firm in the project actually did basically a design estimate, a design kind of guide to see what the best type would be. And again, we had conversations with those municipalities to really help them select the best type of bridge for their particular area and their location. And since the program's wrapped up, it wrapped up last year. I mean, we've had a number of flooding events. Not to jinx ourselves, but the bridges have withstood any flooding event so far, whereas previously some of them obviously we overtopped. There could have been some damages that would have occurred with the old bridge structure. The new bridges are holding up very well. And all in all, I think the municipalities were very happy with the outcome. I know the county, you know, Austin and I were definitely very happy with the outcome. We were able to help everybody.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, one other thing to mention is that, Sal had mentioned, you know, Washington Township and Gap Road, and that bridge, it ended up costing around $850,000. And this is for probably Lycoming County's like one of their most rural municipalities. I mean, it has our largest portion of Amish and Mennonite. And that bridge costing $850,000, you know, 5% of the township. I think they ended up, you know, paying just under 45. And this is for a township that has less than 2,000 people. So I mean, to try and afford a $850,000 bridge with that few people, there's no amount of taxes that they're ever raising, you know, there to offset that. It was also one of our bridges that scored the lowest. It sits on it's a township road, but it runs directly through the middle of the state forest there. So it needed to be replaced quickly as possible. And through this program, we were able to take care of bridges like that. We were also very fortunate to twice be awarded by CCAP for the Road and Bridge Safety Awards for bundles 1, and then on the latter award, we were able to put in for bundles 2, 3, and 4, since we completed them within the same award cycle there. And we were able to be awarded that. our staff here is always welcome. Like Sean had said, if your county wanted to come and speak on whether our experience with the $5 fee or, doing a program like this.
Well, then, Mark.
No, I will not send Mark. That where I will go. Counts from a full day event. But we're always happy to answer questions either now or, offline, or like I said, we're happy to come down and present as well.
One last thing I want to mention, I actually made me think about it, Austin, with Gap Road, was there was a number of municipalities that were able to have added benefits. So for instance, with Gap Road, where that particular bridge structure was, I think they wanted to put in a dry hydrant for fire, response, and they were able to add that at a minimal cost to the project. They contracted separately with the project, the contractor that put in the bridge. Eldred Township did some other road repair work on that road as well. It was by nature of having someone on site already doing a larger project that it cost them, a little bit more to get, a secondary project that they had their eye on done. So that was another unintended benefit of the program.
Excellent information, and these PowerPoint presentations, were in the advanced packet email that we had shared out. They're linked on our website. Folks, feel free to take them up. Appreciate the offer to come out and speak to other counties, but we'll have this meeting recorded as well, and certainly the PowerPoints. But a lot of great information, a lot of successes to date. You've leveraged this funding source and really capitalized on it. So thankful for that information. Just curious, quick question for me for others. The dirt low volume road program, it can be used towards bridges. Has that come up at all in these conversations? Because bridges you selected as well to be a piece or contribute in any fashion?
So are you asking if we utilize like those funds for this?
Just that, or like conservation district involvement at all, or if it was mixed in at all?
They actually worked in conjunction with Washington Township on that road to do improvements throughout, because
On the road itself.
we didn't want to have like this new like pristine bridge and then leading up to it in both directions, it was, the road was in pretty terrible condition. And they actually have an issue with sort of rutting on the roads from the buggies. So they went through and they got, I think it was like 2.5 miles worth of, they just, road improvement there. But as far as like using that for like offset or match or anything like that, we did not use that. No, I think it was $5 fee in the TIB loan. And then we had set aside funds from liquid fuels and 13 bridge restricted as like, emergency.
Yeah, a contingency fund if something went horribly wrong.
One question for both of you, maybe beyond your control, is how is the county administering or identifying that fund when received from PennDOT? Is it going into the general line item, or is it going into a specific line item that then they would draw from? Just trying to get a little head based on this going to the.
For us, the way, so I work with our financial management division. I was kind of like the money person, and Austin was more like the project lead. We have like a separate account where that fund comes into. It's easily trackable. The financial management office, they let me know when it's usually June and December, if I remember correctly, when the drop hits into those accounts. But they'll let me know when things come in. They also let me know, obviously, on the other end, when we're putting money to pay out, because they transfer the money from that fund to another account where PennDOT will pull from to repay the PIB loan. So
it's managed independently of
it's kept separate.
general
Yeah,
account.
yeah. I think it's easier for the tracking, and also I haven't gone through an audit, but I could imagine for auditing, it's easier to show. Yeah, completely separate.
I think by law, it has to be a separate account, has to be on a separate.
A lot of our grants come in that way.
One of the things I didn't mention, to recognize Lycoming County, we modeled our municipal bridge bundle after their program and use sort of their MOU template, and appreciate Mark and everybody up there helping us out with that.
Thank you. No, I think Mark would be the first to say that, if we're doing something that's working and other counties can take it or municipalities can take it and get good results out of it, then go for it. Definitely.
Appreciate that. Any other final questions for either Sean, Sal, or Austin? At least I saw you had a chat. That was kind of separate from the $5 fee conversation, but certainly, yeah, if any of the counties and municipalities are seeing bridge on a state route that you think needs attention or issues, you can coordinate through your municipal services, through us, Chris in his office, and see if there's things that are looked at, where that currently stands, if it's something you want to submit for the TIP, and just that whole asset management and prioritization process. So it's not just for local roads. If you have needs or questions or issues, if you're noticing stuff on the state network, feel free to share that with all of us, and we can see where that can get plugged in the timing or sequencing for available funding.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was very informative and excellent. We do have an action item next on item I. That's the approval of the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Agreement. We included that in the packet along with the resolution. Beginning on page 58 is the agreement itself. Quick background context, it came out of the 2025 TIP finding and the planning recommendations that come out of the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. That's done every 2 years, and they look at things, and kind of what was found and some others with compliance reviews that there was outdated or not fully up to snuff agreements between the MPOs, the RPOs, PennDOT, and the transit operators. So recommendation was made, and then a template from Tennessee, which I shared with all of us to kind of model to make sure that the most current language, Title 23 and all the Code of Federal Regulations is listed there for our continuous process and how we cooperate with transit operators, PennDOT, and its MPOs. So we wanted to follow suit on that. Our MOUs, sometimes language changes and there's been new regulations put into place, so they should be looked at on a regular basis. And we thought this model, it was good to follow. We shared it with Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration, PennDOT, and all the transit agencies. All were fine with it. We had minor comments in from Federal Highway Administration. We just changed a few words here and there to specify, like the plans or studies would be shared with each other in advance of adoptions, and on the obligated projects listing, just the timing of that, of when that needs to be completed. So everyone seems to be in acceptance. And so we wanted to put this in the packet here today, include the agreement and the resolution, and then just recognize that new federal transportation bills are passed. We should be looking at this or other things that might change locally as well, or processes, we can reflect them. But just to offer the chance for any questions about this agreement or what it entails. The members will be comfortable taking a vote here to approve the agreement from our end. I can sign on behalf of the MGO as the chairperson, and then we'll send it off to the PennDOT folks and the transit agencies to adopt as well. But with conversations already held to date, I don't think there'll be any issues with that, and we'll get it signed and put into place. So any questions about the agreement or the resolution in the packet? Jeff Eisman, do you have a question?
Yeah, two questions actually. Who is Call a Ride? I'm not familiar with them.
Ride operator, Call a Ride Service Incorporated, the Mifflin Juniata Regional, I forget the longer name for them, but Call a Ride Services.
Oh, Mifflin Juniata. And for STEP, I'm familiar with them a little bit. What counties are they currently serving and what programs?
That's Clinton and Lycoming counties. So they're primarily invested in the lot process because of their capital programs and arrangements there. But they do serve Clinton County for the shared ride service. You'll see them making a lot of trips to Geisinger, bringing folks down to their appointments, and certainly within Clinton County. And they have a designated stop service as well that they're running now, in addition to the typical Call a Ride and ADA type of service.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other questions from the members? If there are none, we'd look to see a motion to approve the agreement and adopt the resolution on page 67, be our first resolution of the year for 2025. So if there's a motion to that effect, we'd look to approve this agreement.
Steve, I'll make the motion to approve the agreement.
Sean, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Greg, thank you for the second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you entertaining that. It's a lot of kind of statutory and regulatory type information, but Justin there.
I just wanted to say thank you. I know you guys took this upon yourself to write this and we had minimal comments from FHWA. FBA had no comments, so I just want to say thank you, for PennDOT to go ahead and update this to meet the current standards that they require, so.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, we're up to item J, and that's the regular update we get on the long-range transportation plan, and I can bring up that PowerPoint of Kristen and Brian as you segue into that.
Brian, I'll start. Have comments.
Right, while Steve's bringing that up, we have a few updates for you as part of our briefing today on our work on the update of the region's long-range transportation plan. And I'm just going to cover a couple points relative to work on project prioritization. Steve, if you could, project prioritization, some preliminary work that we're doing on a review of the region's functional classification scheme, our ongoing work on the strategic directions or the goals, objectives, and action items for the plan. And then we'll wrap up with a few words on some of the things we're going to be involved in here in the next several weeks and months as part of the plan update. I'll begin first with project prioritization. Still a very important aspect of the MPO's work. And we're coordinating with MPO staff here with regard to selection criteria in terms of how we evaluate the merits of proposed projects. So we've not landed on, which criteria we're going to be using or the weighting or things like that just yet, but there are different types of criteria that we are evaluating as part of scoring candidate projects. We're also looking at getting a request out to PennDOT Asset Management for some model runs for PAMs and BAMs to identify future pavement projects, bridge projects, ones that would be over like maybe $2 or $3 million in scale. We'll figure out what that threshold should be. But what we'd like to do is take advantage of the asset management tools that PennDOT has created and is continuing to fine tune, and to identify what are those longer range projects that are out there on the horizon, maybe beyond year 12 of the long range plan. Again, the 12-year program is going to form the core list of projects for the plan, but we need to be identifying what are those projects beyond year 12 or years 13 through 20 of the plan. So we do want to work with PennDOT Asset Management to identify what are those major projects that the MPO should be aware of over the longer term. So we'll be working with Asset Management on that exercise. Moving on to functional class, we've begun an initial review of the region's functional classification scheme. This is a very important element of the MPO's overall work program. Wanted to just share a table that shows how the region's functional classification scheme is arrayed today compared to what FHWA's recommendations are for the share of your network that may be principal arterial versus minor arterial and so forth. And just our initial look at the region's functional classification scheme shows that the region overall is within those FHWA guidelines. So that's the good news. We are systematically going through each one of the regional layers, whether it's a principal arterial all the way down to those that are functionally classified as local roadways. And we've really begun what I've referred to as like a flag analysis of each one of those layers. So it's basically a GIS exercise where we're looking at all the roadway segments in the region, everything that has a functional classification. We're looking at what the FHWA guidelines are for things like AADT or traffic volumes on each one of those segments. Are there any outliers, or are there any situations where maybe we have a roadway segment that has a higher volume than what you would expect, for that classification type So we're going through those and doing that evaluation. We're also looking at the region's principal arterials. FHWA wants to see this network as a closed loop. So interstates connect to other interstates, principal arterials connect to other principal arterials. And so we're evaluating the region's principal arterials from that standpoint as well. We have found several instances across the region where there are roadways that are classified as principal arterials that they just end. They don't connect to other principal arterials. We have not discussed those with MPO staff just yet. But it is something that we're taking a look at. We're going to be sharing with staff in more detail at our next meeting. So again, those are just some of the kinds of things that we're looking at.
Sure, quick comment on that, just for the members that you're considering those. If you know there's been some major land use changes, you know, and this power coming to you about, hey, we think this local road should be added to the federal aid system. Feel free to start kind of populating those, compiling those along with these kind of checks and evaluations that we're doing. If you know, just there's huge developments going in or have recently been constructed and things need to change based on business parks, major school relocations, things like that. Feel free to go ahead and start referring to those, and we'll have like a wet map component to make this easier to review as well.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for that. And I had a question for Chris. Looks like he left the room, but with regard to things like CSVT, the southern segment, here he is. With regard to CSVT and the new southern segment that'll be opening up, in terms of when is functional classification assigned to a new alignment? When does that happen? And is that something that should be incorporated as part of this evaluation? We're talking about functional classification updates and, Chris, you had provided updates earlier on CSVT, and when do those considerations get made when the MPO starts coordinating with PennDOT on designating a functional classification to that new alignment?
Oh, that's an actual question.
Something to think for. But something
We had already been thinking, I think we have a draft submission already prepared. So we can, I think when we first put the submission together, the final opening date was a little questionable. As it's starting to come into focus, I think we can probably move forward with it. And we could do it as part of a larger submission. I think it probably makes sense to keep it separate. But we can.
Just something we didn't want to lose sight of. Yes.
As you're doing the function class, are you able to get data from like a Strava or Google or somebody else who's got usage data on the roads? You can see a heat map that helps you understand that, because we don't have traffic counters on all the roads. I was wondering essentially how you're getting the information.
Probably INRIX would probably be more suitable for that kind of analysis. I mean, for now, we're just using a simple GIS, kind of a GIS-based analysis, looking at the GIS data of roadway volumes, truck volumes, things like that. I guess if we wanted to get more technical, we could bring in INRIX data or something from the RIDIS platform to do a more thorough evaluation of the network. Hopefully, it's not too out of sync. I know over time, those classifications can become out of date as travel patterns change. But
we have the most recent in PennDOT's roadway management system counts. Typically for these layers, we rely on that. But if there's other things to kind of consider, we can investigate that for other sources and data sets. But yeah, it's what's in PennDOT's roadway management system for now on the daily traffic volumes.
Yeah, for something like Strava, we probably use that for more of a bicycle pedestrian type evaluation. So I think we would use that for something like this.
And the INRIX RIDIS data pulls from Google, right, and Waze data and things like that. It's sort of the same. It's pulling from that source to provide that information.
Anything else under functional class? We're really looking forward to diving into this in more detail, but we'll have more updates for you on that at future meetings. Steve brought up the slide on the goal areas. I know I've talked about this at prior meetings. Again, just as a reminder, we're organizing all of the plan's strategic directions around the federal training factors, and we have them shown here on the screen. So again, all of these planning factors are in turn being supported by a number of objectives and action items that'll be used in the plan. Our team has already developed the action strategies, and we're in the process now of developing more of the narrative behind each one of those strategies. What's the supporting rationale? Why are these actions important for the MPO to be implementing? So we're working on the kind of the narrative or the prose, that goes behind each one of those action items, and we'll be sharing those with the Planning Steering Committee. We have a meeting coming up with them week after next, and that'll be a major agenda item for us at that meeting. Next slide, Steve's already touched on this, but I'll say it again. The State Transportation Commission has its statewide survey. It is now available. It's out there on the street. You see the address there, talkpatransportation.com. And I would just encourage everyone here to do what you can to raise awareness of this survey with your networks, with your constituent groups. Try to get as much input as we can for the SEDA COG MPO region. And again, this is a great resource for us. It's something that the STC does every 2 years, and PennDOT, we've already coordinated with PennDOT and given Dan Keene a heads up that we're going to be looking for access to the survey data here after the survey period ends here at the end of April. So they'll carve up the data and provide it to any planning partner who asks for it. We can use that, have access to that data and use it as part of the plan update. And then finally, with a quick look ahead, I mentioned our steering committee meeting we have coming up here week after next. We'll be talking more detail about the functional classification work we're involved in, work on the strategic directions, and a couple other agenda items as well. Our work is continuing on the development of the background profile for the plan. In coming weeks, I'd really like to see us begin wrapping up work on finalizing the plan's strategic directions. Ongoing work on the functional classification review. The revenue forecast. I know previous cycle, we had financial guidance documentation came out in the middle of April. How we're tracking with this cycle, if we're looking at a similar rollout of the financial guidance documentation, if we're looking at that sometime in April or maybe later. But we'll be looking forward to the financial guidance documentation that's released by PennDOT. And again, those are the numbers that we're going to be drawing from in developing a revenue forecast for the SEDA COG MPO over the long term. So we'll be looking at that and also taking advantage of the STC survey results, working with the program center. Probably sometime by mid-May, we'll have access to that data and start working with that and looking at what are the implications of what public preferences are for transportation in the SEDA COG MPO region. Kristen, I don't know if you had any.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what you said, our next steering committee meeting is on April 8th, and that one of the focuses of that meeting will be on getting the discussion with the steering committee on the project prioritization criteria, particularly for discretionary projects. We're not talking yet about the weighting of those, but just coming up with the list of these are the criteria that we'll use to run projects through that. Generally, we'll be using the same process as we used at the last LRTP, but adding some additional criteria to that list, potentially based on the feedback from the steering committee.
Brian, Kristen, any other questions?
Thank you.
If not, then we're up to item K and the NEVI Community Charging Program report, and Don's gonna cover that.
Okay, thank you. Just to remind everybody, NEVI is the federally sponsored program to promote establishment of community charging stations, which has been in process now for a good couple of years. The focus right now is on establishing community charging stations. And as you've heard me say, probably the last 2 meetings, a lot of this is still up in the air. It's gotten a lot of national publicity about what's happening with EVs and federal support of that. We continue to follow PennDOT's guidance on where things are, and that essentially is stay the course, continue on with the work until told otherwise. What Federal Highways and USDOT are expected to come out with is some formal guidance updates soon. We keep hearing soon. That may in turn trigger some challenges to what conditions
that those are, that are described in that new guidance. Like a lot of other programs right now that we're all following. At this point, though, as recently as Tuesday, PennDOT's NEVI coordinator said pretty much still continue to do what you're doing. And where we are at this point, if you remember from last fall, we completed a charging station study. And at this time, we have about 8 possible locations, which will probably grow. And the next step in our process is to have community meetings. PennDOT is recommending, in our case, probably 2 meetings is a number to have. We're going to be having one in the eastern counties and one in our western counties. Right now, we're looking at May 7th in Shamokin and May 13th in Lock Haven. Those are tentative dates. They're not set yet. But we should be able to do that fairly soon. And that's designed to collect additional information on potential charging locations, provide an educational component about EVs. PennDOT will be participating in that. And we'll be getting the word out about that really soon. I did want to ask our Lycoming contingent, do you have meetings that are planned, or where are you in the process right now?
We're a little further behind, I would say, in the process, but we also, just looking at like what we were tentatively projected for, it was not a lot. So we were getting there, but not quite to that point yet.
Very good. We currently have an EV survey that we put out using, I think it's R123 is like the survey mechanism, and that we've been promoting that via our social media pages. It ran through March essentially as like a second kind of outreach portion. So, and in all honesty and disclosure, we kind of stole that concept. I think it was from DPRPC. We didn't just like come up with that on our own. They had a really good system. We were able to kind of roll that into something we could use. So,
Okay.
Giving credit where credit's due there.
All right. And on that topic too, at this Tuesday meeting, there were presentations from 2 MPOs that have been through the process and are farther ahead than we are too. NEPA and Northwest RPO have conducted their meetings and have had community surveys as well. And Center Region is going to have their 2 meetings this month over in that county. I think to be a little higher level on it, we're all cooperating in these surveys, and we're not reinventing things, but we're collecting important information. I think our challenge we want to continue to coordinate with you on is to get the word out as much as possible. We've already talked to Center County about publicizing their meetings coming up on social media and vice versa, and we're very open to being able to do that. Our survey that Steve just brought up here is probably due to be released real soon, once we know the meeting dates and times and places for our 2 meetings. But Steve has put this together using our social pinpoint tool, and it will allow us to send this out, get feedback in advance of these meetings, so that similar to things like our LRTP process and other things that have been done in the past, people will be able to get online, drop a location in there, and that will be considered in our working list of possible locations. So that'll be complemented with some interactive work when we have our community meetings as well. Also based somewhat on what PennDOT's already done in their NEVI process going back to last year. So we're moving this forward until told otherwise. We hope it'll continue to go on. We'll get some further good information about charging stations. By midsummer, PennDOT will be asking us to submit potential locations and potential what they call use cases for types of areas, downtowns, convenience stores, hotels, those sort of things, to prioritize those. That'll be gathered together on a statewide level, and then we'll go into funding possibilities, assuming that happens. So I don't think there's anything else I wanted to mention here. So we'll be able to report to you at our next meeting, hopefully, on the process and the progress of those community meetings and what we get out of it. So anything you'd like to add, Steve, on the survey?
Please, members, help with that kind of promotion. We're hoping this moves forward. We can see these. We know registrations are rising, infrastructure is needed. So hope everything gets sorted out and worked out, but we're responding to the request to get these different kind of use categories, And then the priority locations, we kind of had to start a list, and we did the regional study last year that MPO adopted, but we wanted to kind of get an opportunity for the larger public, other organizations and businesses to weigh in. So whether they attend the workshops in person or they take advantage of the survey and the mapping tool that we have here on our draft page. This will be published once the workshop details are finalized, and we'll get it out to everybody so you can cross promote it and steer people here, and we can collect the information through this mechanism hopefully, and then have the in-person feedback.
I was gonna say, if you get me when it's locked down, you know when it's going live, just give me the stuff, we can promote it on our pages like we normally do. Because I feel that obviously helps extend your reach and everything.
Great, appreciate that. Yeah, same if there's things you want us to.
Yep.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, everyone. So more to come on that in the near future, and feel free to attend. Our initial thought was just to have those as in-person workshops, not like virtual or hybrid. But then other people can go to the website to certainly get the information that way and participate with their comments or input. We're up to item L. That is me. This is very just briefly. It's a verbal local bridge prioritization process. Just looking after today's meeting. Hopefully, we'll have poll go out to the county members like a Calendly or Doodle. Just start getting your availability or spring months to start setting into motion the tip update coordination meetings that we typically do. So, all the district staff, municipal services, your bridge engineers, and the county staff to go over what was submitted last time, what new things have emerged, and candidate local bridges. So, this spring, look for those to be scheduled, but we'll pull you for dates in advance. That's the main output there. Any questions on that? If not, the active transportation item M, also a very quick verbal. We had our most recent committee meeting in February. The next one will be on May 14th. So those of you that aren't involved, feel free to let us know. We can get you on the distribution list. We always try to have some interesting guest presentations, a lot of kind of best practice sharing as well occurs through those. And if you have topics or themes, let us know for future meetings. But otherwise, the work groups continue to meet usually ahead of the full committee. So those next ones will be on April 9th for the outreach and implementation work groups. From our end, just on implementation, we're still working to finalize that complete streets project listing matrix and then a web map component. So that'll be the main thing for that group that we're working on. And a couple of counties, I think, might be getting some outreach from Michelle Brummer to finalize some of that as well. So be on the lookout for that. We didn't wrap it up in the last fiscal year. And that's all I really pretty much had on the active transportation committee. So we're up to the member forum then, item N. In the package are typical kind of interest items and a couple of PennDOT news releases for your consumption. If you didn't review those in advance. And so at this time, I want to open the floor up to anyone else, any member updates or general discussion, or go to the order type preferences.
Yeah, Steve, just a quick point, for those of you who work with the Watts MPO, our current supervisor, Scott Williams, last day is next Friday. So any correspondence that would typically go with Scott or any questions you would be working with him on, please direct them to Sal or I.
I thought you were just gonna say me and not.
Well,
We're sorry to hear about Park, but in good hands with you guys there. So we'll coordinate with you as needed on any of those items. Or
Scott he'll be going over. He'll still be around. He's gonna be working for the city. So he'll still be in the periphery, as it were.
Thanks. Anything else from members in the room or online for interest items? Yeah, sorry, we'll go to Nate first here, or are you gonna point something else?
No, I just wanted to mention, that, since it came up during the LRTP discussion, we are working on the financial guidance. I think one of the biggest outliers at the end of this federal fiscal year, which is September, we are still working on a continuing resolution. So we will look for the next passage of another, federal legislation related to federal transportation dollars. So right now it's financial guidance is looking at the status quo, and hopefully we continue with that or increase federal participation in the network. But With that, we're hoping to have that guidance out, at the end of April, beginning of May. But we will be taking a look at it fiscal year to see what any changes might come through at the federal level, so.
For balance and all that, it's hard to crunch those numbers with all the different things that are occurring, so. For the update on the financial guidance work group. Anyone else in the room before we go to those online? Okay, Jeff Heisman, I believe, Tina said you had your hand up yet?
Yeah, and I think some of us are still teasing out guidance for other federal programs from the continuing resolution beyond DOT. So there's that. I wanted to just mention some of the information I posted in the chat. PennDOT did come out in the last month or so with their shared ride study for not just persons with disabilities, but seniors. They noted another number of state agencies and programs in there. Essentially, their conclusion is the current system is unsustainable. They give 4 possible paths. It'll probably be a mixture of something. We are going to have a Transportation Alliance meeting on, Tuesday, April 15th, and Danielle Spilla from PennDOT, maybe you know Danielle. She's going to be on there, and they may have some others on there to talk about the shared ride study. Also posted some additional information on Real ID. There are some targeted days in particular locations. I think the closest one for the 31st is Schuylkill County, but it looks like May 7th. If you actually go into the PennDOT website, they have several weeks. It looks like it's Mondays. And there is one in Williamsport, one of the locations there. If folks want to go there for Real ID. And last, there are going to be some upcoming transportation rallies. Don't have any dates yet, but I know Transit for All PA is doing efforts statewide. And I think PPTA, they're the Transit Providers Association. I know Rabbit, Step, and some others belong to that. They're going to be having an advocacy day coming up. So those are things just to be aware of in the future. So those will probably be May and June. Thank you.
Jeff, I only had an opportunity to take a look at the executive summary for the statewide shared ride study, but the others at a county level, or if you're dealing with your transit operators, feel free to consider that. I think there'll be a phase 2 report rolled out in the future, and we can put that information in the packet for May as well. Anyone else with any interest items or discussion here today? Okay, hearing none, I think we will move to the gavel slide here and look for a motion to adjourn and reconvene on May 9th. We have a motion to adjourn. Sean, thank you for the motion. We have a second.
Sure.
Great, thank you for the second. All in favor, please. Aye. Any nays? Thanks, everybody. Just 7 minutes over.